I think specifically when we're talking about food behaviors and like taking control of your body composition, whatever that actually looks like in terms of the final goal, I think that there's a lot of effort that goes into, understanding what must happen. But that effort is misplaced and put into really the weeds of like, okay, well, should I wear a waist trainer to make my waist smaller? Should I not have fruit in my afternoon meal because I won't have enough time to burn through those carbs later in the day? Whereas, like, the focus really has got to be on the things that are really much more simple and rudimentary. And I think if you can take those things that absolutely, like the non-negotiables that must happen, like for instance, in the case of fat loss, like you need to be in a deficit. In the case of hypertrophy, you need to be in a surplus. And we can simplify these into behaviors. So how do we create a deficit? How do we create a surplus? We monitor our food intake because most people aren't going to be very honest, not because they're shit people, just because it's very difficult to be honest about hunger signaling, and actual hunger signaling can be very overpowering when it comes to determining if you've had enough or you've had too little. And depending on where that settles for you, I mean, you could be someone who very much leans on the side of under eating. So maybe fat loss does come a little easier to you. But when it comes to hypertrophy, it's something that you have to like really berate yourself to make sure that you get enough food in order to build muscle. But I think simply demystifying these goals and breaking them down into target behaviors and like, okay, what needs to happen? Well, what is causing you to not act in accordance with your goal? Okay, you're not losing weight. So by definition, your goal is to lose weight. You're not losing weight. Why are you not losing weight? Because you're not in a deficit. So why are you not in a deficit? Because you don't know that you're not in a deficit. Okay, well then that's a knowledge gap we can fill very, very quickly. We can have you track in a food diary. And okay, well, you don't have the skill set to track in a food diary because you don't know how to estimate the weight against gravity in grams of these foods because you've never done that. You've never eyeballed that. Okay, so we buy a food scale and then we make sure that it becomes a habit that every time you eat something that you weigh it in grams or in ounces or in mls and you log it into your diary. Okay, well then the next deficit is, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Well, is it really a pain in the ass to take the bowl that you were going to put on the counter anyway and put it on a scale and like look at it and compute what the numbers say, and then to go into your phone and probably scan the thing that you're eating and then log the 80 grams of whatever, and then okay, that tells me I have this amount of budget. There are more steps to it, but the alternative is to eyeball things and to guess. And sure, maybe there's a season for that. Maybe there's a time where that makes the most sense. But I think for a lot of people, particularly the ones that are very motivated to understand what they're doing and develop these skills, I think this is where tracking and just being very like granular with, okay, what are the things that are not allowing me to see results? I can never gain muscle. Okay, why can't you gain muscle? Well, I don't know. I'm working out. I'm eating a lot of food, but my weight's going down, or my weight's not going up. So if your weight's not going up, you're not in a surplus. You should probably be in a surplus if you're trying to gain muscle. Like, we do have to see that the weight's going up in order to ensure that muscle is actually being accrued, even if it's going up very gradually. Well, I don't like weighing myself every morning. Why don't you like weighing yourself every morning? This is where understanding the whys and the cognitions behind these beliefs that are now behaviors is really important. And like, yes, there might be multifacets of like ways you can, change your behavior, but ultimately I don't think that the behaviors that need change are nearly as complex as you would imagine. And like, when we start getting into the weeds around like, okay, I don't know if I'm willing to actually be adherent. I don't know if I'm willing to give up what I need to give up to do the thing that I want to do. So you want to lose fat, but that means like, hey, on Fridays you go out and you have a whole pizza and you have wings and a dessert and you have a couple beers. And then the next 3 days you really extend yourself with like dropping carbs, doing a lot of cardio. You feel like shit. By the middle of the week, by like Tuesday, Wednesday, you get there and you're like, I can't wait till Friday again. Like, I'm going to eat even more than I ate last time. So you have this vicious cycle that ultimately is putting you into this like yo-yo of binge restrict, which it's not moving you in a very linear direction, if at all in a positive direction towards your goals. That's where you have to ask, okay, well, I can either give up the goal of losing weight, or I can give up the experience, the pleasure that comes from having the ability, the flexibility to really go out, eat however I want. And as long as I pull back the next 3 days, I can do the same thing every single week. But the cost of that is not reaching your goals. It's not reaching your goals any sooner while this behavior is still taking place. And I think that's where it's really started to resonate with me when I started to frame it like, instead of, okay, well, I'm making this sacrifice, it's like, no, I'm trading the discomfort later, and I'm experiencing that discomfort now, that same discomfort I'm experiencing today, because that will create a more comfortable future for me down the line.